All right, the withdrawal of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso from ECOWAS has raised concerns over increased insecurity in the Sahel region. This is because even with regional cooperation, ending violent extremism in the region had been a daunting task. Now, with the pullout of experts are worried about the effects in countries like Nigeria. The three nations led by military juntas announced the withdrawal in a televised broadcast accusing the regional body of becoming a threat to member states. Moyo Thomas has details.
Following the joint announcement of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso to leave ECOWAS, the reaction has been on the impact this will have on the regional body and the African continent as a whole. In this interview with a lecturer and a global affairs analyst, Dr. Mukhtar Imam, he describes the pullout as a setback that poses a great threat to the region.
Withdrawal of these independent sovereign governments, it doesn't really speak well to achieving collective security in that area. We all know that the Sahel is a very delicate, as a matter of fact, it's one of the most delicate, fragile places or regions in the world, in as much as or as far as security is concerned. And the matters of security and insurgency and terrorism, as we all know, it has become internationalized.
Beyond insecurity, the economic impact would also be dire. He says this development calls for introspection among world leaders in ensuring citizens enjoy good governance, especially with equitable wealth distribution.
People don't understand the notion or structure of administration. What they want is to see food on their table. Whatever name you call it, translate it to food on their table, translate it to economic empowerment, translate it to, dividends of good governance. That's all people are concerned about. And that's why protests are on the streets of Paris. That's why even in London there are protests. People are fed up. Democracy is something we should embrace. Democracy is the way to go.
The African continent is blessed with about 30% of world's mineral resources enough to place the continent at an advantage and boost the continent's foreign policy, especially at negotiations. This, he says, were the Pan-African ideals on which ECOWAS was established. Dr. Imam cautions on the need for more proactive actions from African leaders to prevent ECOWAS or even Africa from imploding. As much as there are calls on ECOWAS leadership to be more proactive on this matter, we also cannot forget that these countries are sovereign countries and there are therefore limitations to what can be done. But it is important to focus on dousing the tension in order for it not to escalate or spread like wildfire to other countries in the region. Moyo Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, joining us in the studio is global affairs analyst Chuks Nwoko. Good morning.
Morning.
It's good to have you.
Congratulations on your award.
Thank you very much. All right, and via Zoom, we have joining us from Senegal, a security expert and regional coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, Dr. Oluwole Ojewale. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let me begin with you, Dr. Ojewale. What your impressions are of this move by these three countries, talking about Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Recall that at some point they were saying that they were coming together with the security outfit to address matters of security. And we also know that ECOWAS had imposed very dire and huge sanctions on these countries because of their departure from democratic rule to what we see, a military rule, what we see now. What do you think this move is by these three countries?
Thank you so much for having me once again. So I think my impression is going to be mixed. On one hand, they don't want ECOWAS to midwife the transitional process. They want everything to be negotiated at their own terms. And it is this arrangement that is going to give them that significant pushback to say we are sovereign nations and want to make our own decisions by ourselves. That is the number one thing. The second thing that is also linked to that is that the transition plan has been in the pipeline for about 2 to 3 years now, particularly in the case of Mali. And based on the information that I'm aware about, this country, particularly Mali, is supposed to hold election in 2024. And then the other countries, even Burkina Faso, are also supposed to follow suit. I know that that is the deadline that ECOWAS is operating with them. But the guy in Mali, Assimi Goïta, has successfully imported into the transitional constitution a clause that allows him and his cohort to be able to feature on the ballot. And there's a significant pushback on the part of ECOWAS in that direction. So I think they pulled this last string to say they are not going to allow ECOWAS to midwife that process for them. And the whole idea is actually regime elongation. And the only organization or institution that is really pulling the string with them is ECOWAS. So I think that is the overarching objective of this pullout. No matter the way that they pull up or what analysis that people are giving outside there, this is at the center of this drive is to be able to manage the transition on themselves. That is even if they want to have democratic transition at all.
Well, this is the first time, since its existence, the West African Bloc ECOWAS is witnessing, three states, three countries, pulling out of the bloc. But then the question there is, those who speak in favor of these three countries, the juntas in these countries, they said that they claimed that ECOWAS has not been forthcoming when it comes to the fight against terrorism, the issue of tackling economic issues and several issues, based on what the founding fathers, brought ECOWAS to bear in the first place. What do you make of these arguments given by them?
I think it is the same argument with which they propelled themselves into power when they said they came to fight insecurity. But by every available indication, the spike in attack has been on the upward curve in the past 2 years, in Mali and Burkina Faso in particular. So this kind of idea of Pan-Africanism that they are suddenly waking up to now, it is just an idea to elongate themselves in power. And one find it very curious that countries that are landlocked, countries that have not been able to pull their weight alone in counter-insurgency operation, are now marrying themselves together to say they want to go solo. Much as it has security implications for Nigeria and the other littoral states, I think they are the ones that are going to bear the heavy burden. And saying they are going to be the one to bear the heavy burden, I'm particularly talking in the direction of the citizens of the state. What is Niger without Nigeria? What is Burkina Faso without Ghana? What is what is Mali without Ivory Coast? They rely on this country for the imports that go into the country. And then even in terms of counter-insurgency operations, this country have been playing their role, at least to the best of our knowledge. Look at the multinational joint task force that Niger and Nigeria are part of. Nigeria foot the bill. Nigeria, carry the heaviest part of the body. So these excuses, like I said earlier, the overarching objective is just to elongate their stay in power. I'm not saying this doesn't have serious implications for Nigeria and other countries anyway, but we just have to put this in the balance.
All right, let's compare your notes with that of Chris Ngoko here. Chuks Ngoko. I don't know why I call it Chris in my head sometimes. But then, he has mentioned some things, saying that this is a matter of they trying to midwife the transitional process and also perhaps elongate themselves in power as well. And they don't want any form of interference. And that transitional process, that is if they even want to, hand over power at the end of the day. I wonder how you interpret that, if you share the same views with him or you interpret it differently.
I see it the same way. It is what I call survival instinct. Because when you give a man, including you and I, power and money, they don't just have money, they have access to the national asset and all that. You rather die. It happened here when Abacha was sanctioned and all that, and he just locked himself up somewhere in Abuja, and the rest of us were suffering. So you don't have to be landlocked in a global stage to suffer when other nations disconnect with you. But the truth of the matter is that I think that for every nation, for every organization, for every individual, there's always a date for an end. Do you understand? ECOWAS, I believe, have lived its purpose and its usefulness. Yes, because we know what ECOWAS has done for this region, and we know what Ojewole was saying, what Nigeria has contributed, and things have changed. And like I just said, there are nations that used to exist on this earth that have ceased to exist. So what is ECOWAS? When the time comes, maybe the time has come, or maybe it's still coming, it will just stop to exist. So there's a force. Now, you know, force is not something that you can hold on to and all that. These guys, they share an affinity. If it was just one nation, they would not be that courageous to say they want to disengage from ECOWAS. So right now there are 3 nations. They speak the same language. They have the same affinity. They have some commonalities and all that and all that. You know, if it's just one nation, you feel the loneliness. You want to associate with your neighbors and all that and all that. But right now, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, there's some commonality. There's some affinity. There's something holding them together, and that is power and access to the national whatever. So they will not give it up. That natural instinct for survival, we just keep them going until, again, the time is up. When, I don't know. But I think that ECOWAS, if they lose their value, Nigeria, in the sub-region, Nigeria probably will not, because Nigeria has been playing a very great role. You know what we did in Liberia? Yeah. You know what we did in Sierra Leone? And remember that governor, that president in Sierra Leone who threw his central bank governor down from the 10th floor because he refused to. So Nigeria has played a great role and all that, and I believe you will continue to play a great role as a giant of Africa and all that. But for ECOWAS, nations have their issues right now. There's a global economic setback and all that. So that's a primary responsibility or priority for every nation. You know, so ECOWAS is suffering that setback. Have you heard about African Union? For how long? When did you hear about African Union last and all that? ECOWAS is burdened by many challenges. So when you focus on Mali and Burkina Faso with sanctions and threat and forced to whatever, you haven't dealt with the issue in Cameroon. You haven't dealt with the issue in a neighboring state here, where, you know, and then here in Nigeria, I always say that we suffer from hypocrisy, because I'm looking at you and looking at my brother here. I can't have log of wood in my eyes, and I'll be seeing the speck in your own eyes. I'm telling you to remove when I haven't removed my own. So if we want democracy, we should practice and be a good example to these people that we were disconnecting with and sanctioning to transform to democracy. I believe in democracy, but let me show you something. The people that we are copying from, they are preparing for election in November. Go and see them. They are trying to remove somebody, a particular candidate, from contesting elections. Yeah. That's how democracy is practiced. So that system of government that you have copied, that you're not even running the way you should run it, you are not doing it the way you should do it. You're asking other people who have rejected it to transform to transmute to democracy.
Those who will argue, you actually knocked ECOWAS, at the same time you argued, for them, based on some of the issues that are peculiar to, individual countries.
Just that time has passed.
Definitely, Nigeria being the largest, spender. If Nigeria decides to exit ECOWAS today, then the community, crumbles. But in all of this, do you not feel that, because some are now saying there will be losers, there will be consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
For the exit of Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. That Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso are landlocked, and they are going to bear the brunt. Others are saying that Nigeria definitely is the biggest loser. ECOWAS rather, is the biggest loser in this exit. Help us understand the dominoes effect of this issue of these 3 countries exiting the community.
I know that Nigeria and Niger Republic, if you look at the map of West Africa, you see the location of particularly Niger. There are people who, and I don't even know the difference between us and them. Here in Lagos, where I live, you just see that we are almost like, we are compact, we're living, so.
Like a continent.
Exactly. So goods and services will not be as it used to be. Insecurity will just increase. But I think that the major setback that we suffer is the internal insecurity that we suffer, the things that we say that propel these things. I worry less about people that we share boundaries with. Do you understand? Like what happened in Kaduna? Kaduna is a state in Nigeria. Do you understand? Right. So the kidnapping that is going on in Abuja, Abuja is the capital of Nigeria. So you will always have insecurity, by the way. Do you understand? So we continue the position of the world today, globally speaking. Insecurity is a major issue. So I think that what I said about this matter here on this table and on this chair is what I'm still saying. When you have this kind of crisis, whether it's internal or external, there is always a third alternative. If you have the common sense to require that, everything is about time and patience. The third alternative is negotiation, persuasion. You cannot force a child, even not to talk of adults or government, to do what they don't want to do. That child will rebel. It will shout, it will cry. Do you understand? So at the level of governance, at this level of regional relationship and politics, you got to learn about the third alternative. Third alternative tells you that there will always be conflict and disagreement, but that when they happen, for the progress of the nation, the progress of the region, you must engage tenaciously in persuasion, in discussion, in motivation, whatever you want to call it. When you remove that on the table, then you're asking for anarchy. Because the people you are dealing with, they are not your children. Even if they are children, if they have grown to a certain level, they will challenge you. So we need to understand that part of leadership. And as enormous responsibility on our president, Nigeria's president, President Bola Tinubu, he needs to get people together to say, we will pursue, these are our goal, but we're going to travel the whole, we're going to cover the trajectory to achieve that goal. That's how it's done. If you don't do it that way, I don't know any other way. Because don't forget, this is my third time I've come here to discuss this issue. And Absolutely. I've always talked about the third alternative. There is no alternative outside the third alternative with these very guys in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and in Niger Republic. Because, look, by force, they have taken power. They will not give it up, except you don't know anything about the military. Yes, and these are guys, because they are military, don't forget that they're educated, brilliant guys. So we need to understand that as leaders, that we must negotiate, we must persuade, and whatever. You know, you give a carrot, and just keep giving the carrot. Forget about the stick and all that.
You should focus on the carrot.
Yes, focus on the carrot.
So now that leads...
You can't lose them. We don't want to lose them.
That leads me to my next question. Let's also get back to Dr. Ajawale to get his perspective on this carrot approach that our guest in the studio, Chukwunoko, is talking about. Recall that when we saw what happened in Niger and the sanctions that ECOWAS began to break down on Niger, a lot of persons were saying that that was not the way to go, that ECOWAS should have perhaps applied some level of dialogue before it began to take, the stick approach on Niger, as we see the sanctions, the economic and financial sanctions it imposed on Niger as we speak. There are those who say that this move by these countries is a matter of a failure of diplomacy and negotiation at play.
Well, the people are saying that, and the question I'm asking them is that, should ECOWAS also just be watching and just be playing the diplomatic game without putting appropriate sanctions to discourage a situation in which people come through the barrel of the gun and take democratically elected leaders away just like that? Because before you say Jack Robinson, like they used to say, it becomes enough. I think the failure of ECOWAS is the fact that two things. In 2020, when the military struck in Mali, ECOWAS didn't do anything. They allowed it to stay. And then some members of the head of state as well started strategizing to elongate their stay in power in what some people have also described as constitutional coup. A case of Afakunde in Guinea, for instance, comes to mind, and another head of state that I'm not going to be mentioning on your platform here, who tried to adjust the term limit in this country. And then when this thing is becoming a norm, ECOWAS now try to act in the case of Niger, and they are saying it is because of the position of ECOWAS. I think we also have to not to be too hard on ECOWAS, because I think the best of what they can do, what we thought was an extreme case was the military invasion, and that was off the table. So what do you want ECOWAS to do again? It was also the chairman of ECOWAS that I think some few months ago started talking about evil transition in Niger, which to somebody like him, to me, it came as a surprise. So I think in the case of some of these countries, to the best of my knowledge, having interacted with top levels ECOWAS officials and people that are also involved in this on the front line, I think ECOWAS is doing all it can. Let me give an instance about the case of Guinea that nobody is talking about. Guinea is requiring ECOWAS to come and finance election when the president of the country is actually financing infrastructure for one purpose, for what they call to buy the legitimacy of the people, performative legitimacy. And then transition is dragging in those countries because ECOWAS terms and conditions are not well situated as far as those people in those, those military guys in those countries are concerned. Look, Mali has been shifting the goalposts for more than 2 years now. For how long are you going to keep people? And people talk about the fact, like you mentioned, that it is because of the democratic erosion, good governance not being delivered to the people. That is why the military struck in those countries. I said it on this program before, and I'm still standing by that point. What separates democracy from military authoritarianism are civil liberties. In Mali now, people have the right of association, the freedom of expression has been taken away from the people. Political parties are not called for transitional negotiation in Burkina Faso. Niger is not going to be different from this trajectory. So military government in Nigeria and in other places, they built schools, they built roads, they built hospitals. Abacha built largest estate in Africa, in Abuja. IBB built the third mainland bridge. But are we now going to say the people who died in those processes when they were fighting for democracy, their blood doesn't worth anything? When the freedom of association was taken away from people? I'm saying this so that we can moderate our perspective and disposition as far as this is concerned. ECOWAS cannot fold his hand. Look at what has unfolded in Syria alone, for instance. So I think ECOWAS, to the best of my knowledge, ECOWAS has even shifted ground away from military invasion. ECOWAS is only negotiating for Bazoum to come out of detention, not to be really reinstated into power. So much as I know that ECOWAS has failed in the past and has not lived up to the expectation of the people, I think ECOWAS has done the best that it can. But these guys are just rogue regimes that want to have things according to their own terms. And we cannot continue to pamper them. Inclusion, that is what democracy fosters. And then we cannot allow a situation in which some people, because they have access to the control of guns, and then they take over power.
Right, Doctor, let me still stay with you. Now, looking at the broad implication on the legal perspective to this, if you look at the Article 91, subsection 1 of the ECOWAS revised treaty, they have to give, any member state must give it a year's notice before it leaves the community. But now the military, the juntas in these 3 countries, they rush to announcing their withdrawal from ECOWAS without, maybe they didn't take notice of all of this, or probably because they are men in uniform. Do you feel that in effect they are still members of ECOWAS according to what ECOWAS has made us understood? How relevant is this legal provision to the situation of things right now?
Well, some sovereign nations have the right to act in their own national interest. And I think when that clause was inserted in the provision of ECOWAS, it didn't envisage a situation in which military government is going to be the one actually activating this clause. I don't think they envisaged that. So technically on paper, they are still members. But I can tell you, like they say in Nigerian parlance, those guys are goners. They've already exited a long time ago. We can only look for a diplomatic way of bringing them back. And let me say, what they want to do actually is to force the hand of ECOWAS, because like people are shouting and talking now, oh, don't fracture the unity of the regional unity. Then look for a way to get a better bargain to negotiate from position of rest, because ECOWAS will not want a fractured union, as far as we know. So they want to, I think, force the hand of ECOWAS back to the table to be able to negotiate the transition in their countries at their own time. Don't forget, at the heart of this, no matter the economic explanation, security explanations that they give, it is the transitional negotiation in the country that is at the heart of this matter. And I think the media and the people must fix their eyes on the ball. This is what they want to do, to either elongate their stay in power or to midwife the transition plan according to their own terms, or to put themselves on the ballot, like Assimi Goïta has done in Mali now.
Chooks, I'd like to get your reaction to some of the things he said. I don't know if you agree, especially with the fact that he said that how long do we need to pamper the military, those who have taken over, seeing what they have done in the countries.
Okay, so what I have said, let me say this. What I've said about ECOWAS is that whether you like it or not, institutions, I had a friend who was working for a newspaper in Apapa, Lagos, and once I noticed he was doing stuff, I told him, you have outlived your journalistic relevance. So it is the same thing, whether you like, in any place where you have human interaction, in any place where you have human organization put together by human, even the one put together by divinity, and he put boundaries and put people and all that. There are nations that have existed in the time past that no longer exist. We have nations that now exist. Are you aware that Eritrea was never in existence at the beginning? There are many new nations. That's what I said about ECOWAS. Now, the force is what you don't see. But I'm telling you what I know, that there's a force. That force is not palpable. If he has outlived his usefulness or relevance, this might just be the beginning. But if you're able to negotiate and bring these guys back, I'm saying it will take time because you need a third alternative. The third alternative tells you that because you have human interaction in the family, at workplace, in a nation, in everywhere in government, you will always have conflict. Now, because you always have conflict, there must be a third alternative, and that alternative is what you talked about, all this negotiation and it's a professional word, that was used just now, and all that. Diplomacy. That is certain. Do you understand? These guys have, by force, taken over power. And I'm saying that you say the system of government is wrong, and I agree with you, but I'm saying that the democracy that you are mounting, for instance, in Nigeria, democracy finally arrived for the longest period of time in 1999. And there were people who paid the price. And there are people who are not aware that a great price was paid for this democracy and are misbehaving. And the military and the citizens like us are seen. I'm actually angry with what is going on in Rivers State. That's not how democracy should be done. We had an election in February and in March 2023. The way it was done, I was excluded. I didn't have money to buy a nomination form. And I gave you an example of America where Trump, there's all effort is being made to remove Trump from the ballot. You are here on television broadcasting and doing your job as a television journalist, abiding by the ethics of the profession. When we finish now, you will come and tell the whole world that the comment made by your guests and all that are personal, that you are not whatever.
Are they mine?
No, they are not yours. But you see, you have a CNN that is constantly abusing the ethics of whatever and lying to us. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That these people, if you don't like the fact that they are military juntas, okay. So we need to negotiate them out of that place, and it will take time.
Give us a sense of what the structure of the negotiation should be. If you look at the papers this morning, ECOWAS is saying that they are ready to negotiate.
Exactly.
Right.
So, because I don't listen to news, I don't have light in my house, I don't even know what is going on. But let me tell you what causes problem that will concern you, and concern me, and concern our brother. Internal insecurity that we face is worse. I give you an example. In 1999, soon after Obasanjo was became president of Obasanjo, there was a meeting that was held in Kaduna. Do you know that on Friday or Saturday, some guy sent me a news item into my phone. See my phone. Somebody sent me a news item. And I opened it and I started reading it. Exactly what happened shortly after President Obasanjo was sworn in happened recently. Some guys gathered somewhere, called journalists, and started speaking how that Muslims have been abandoned by President Tinubu. So those utterances are dangerous. They cause insecurity.
Now, back to the issue, because these are not, the question I asked is what manner of negotiation should ECOWAS have with these persons? That's the question.
That in our sub-region, that we believe in democracy, that you have violently taken over power, that you need to rethink. And that if you want ABC, tell us what you want to ease you out of power. If you need money to conduct elections, tell us. If you need human resources, tell us. By the way, let me remind you what you have forgotten. Not some time ago, I heard a story of how that guy in Gambia didn't want to leave power after he lost an election. The Nigerian government just flew an aircraft over the government house, and the guy took off. You can't do it in Niger because maybe for whatever reason, I don't know. You can't do it in Mali. You can't do it in whatever. But as ECOWAS, you did it. Why are you not doing it in Niger? Why are you not doing it in Burkina Faso? That guy ran away. You remember what I'm talking about?
Of course.
Exactly. So you will check every man for his strength, then negotiate with them. Do you want money to conduct this election? And every member state that can afford to contribute, usually it's Nigeria that carries the largest responsibility. Right. Conduct this election. They might not agree, but you keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I said it will take you time and patience.
So how long it's going to take, even though they jump?
Doesn't matter how long.
They said they want to perpetuate themselves in
no, they cannot do that
for 3 years. But then, Dr. Ojewale, let me come to you. You already advocated that those critiques and analyses, they should try to cut ECOWAS some slack. But I read to you a position, because we know that ECOWAS isn't a kid, and it's almost over 50-year-old now. But some of the critics have said that it hasn't achieved a common currency or stop coups, has no value template, and within the bloc, there are still sit-tight leaders who have served for 10 years, and nothing has been done. And its relevance solely relies on Nigeria, and if it exits the bloc, the community would collapse. So the question to you is, do you think the Tinubu-led chairmanship of the ECOWAS begin to re-examine the relevance of the region so that they can strengthen the community in order to mitigate against all of these reactions that they are getting within the community or within the bloc?
I've moved around a bit in Africa. Bad as it is that people might want to beat ECOWAS. I'm not holding brief for them. I don't earn my salary from ECOWAS. But I will talk from what I know. I can still tell you that it's the most respected rec within the African continent in terms of cohesion, in terms of the protocols of free movement of persons and whatever other advantages that ECOWAS confers on this region. It's a no-brainer. I live in Senegal. I came here to work. My South African friend came. We went to the immigration together. It is written boldly that if you are a West African citizen, you don't need work permit. You can just carry your bag and come here and work. It is as simple as that. So I'm citing that example as part of the economic liberalization, freedom of movement that is obtainable in the region. Our region, as Africa as a whole, is already in a state of poor integration. So people who are saying ECOWAS has outlived its usefulness, what alternative are they putting on the table? Because the realities of globalization implies that nations can only function in the context of interdependence, and we cannot allow our union to continue to be fractured. Look, in every form of multilateralism or international relation, particularly when you have a union of nations, there must be an hegemon that is going to determine the direction that those countries are going to take. And that responsibility by sheer size and resources and every other thing that you can consider falls on Nigeria. And Nigeria must live up to that reality. What we have not seen is that we have deployed some of these things to some of those countries, but in terms of the advantage that is supposed to be accruing to Nigeria, it has not been accruing to Nigeria because of the defective foreign relation policy that we've had, particularly maybe in the last 1 decade or more, for instance. So I give you, for instance, you see how other countries like America go to Middle East and all those places. When they are going after, they've done whatever they want to go and do there. They take their business organizations along who begin to prospect for business. So what did Nigeria do in Sierra Leone? What did Nigeria do in Liberia? What did Nigeria do in all these other countries where they have had all kind of diplomatic and military intervention? Those are subject for another day. But Nigeria has the responsibility that has fallen on it as a country, and it must live up to that. So we cannot blame ourselves, or maybe we think maybe we are disadvantaged for providing that leadership. It is expected that the one who is capable of doing such job must do it. And then on the question of what the president should do, I think what you need to know is that, and this is a public knowledge, Nigeria foreign policy caved in the last 1 decade. And then I think it has fallen on the present administration to begin to see how they can recalibrate that and make the centerpiece diplomacy, not necessarily military rhetoric, we are going to invade and all those things. So I think that is the process that is taking place now. And people must definitely try to exercise patience as the government try to recalibrate the foreign policy of the country. We do not have alternative to ECOWAS now. And anybody that says ECOWAS has fumbled, has wobbled, and is failing should put alternative on the table. At the reality of the present time, no country can live in silo. And I can tell you, these countries are going to come back to ECOWAS. They need ECOWAS much more than we need them. If there's any other area where we are concerned, it's the security implication of their decision. Beyond that, I don't see any other concern or fear that people should entertain as far as the decision that they have made.
But one question that is being asked is, does ECOWAS really need these countries, Dr. Ojawale?
Yes, we need them. Like I said, countries can only function in the context of interdependence. You need them. I mean, a lot of dairy products that we are consuming in Nigeria come from Niger. And then even beyond those trading things, we need them for counter-insurgency operations. See, Sahel is at our backyard, and we cannot allow that place to become completely ungovernable. And that is the reason why we need them for cooperation. For that security implication, we need them. We can't survive alone without Nigeria shares boundary of about 1,500 kilometers with Niger. That's a huge expanse of land that you don't want to live in the hand of the group that doesn't call. I mean, that is not going to show or take responsibility for security implication of his decisions.
Interesting stuff. So he said that Nigeria needs this country, but others are saying that, well, it actually holds no water. The fact that they announced their withdrawal, from ECOWAS, because Mauritania did it. They left, and then at a point they had to come back to beg, and that is what Dr. Ojawale is saying. But they are also saying that that ECOWAS should call their bluff, because it is made by those who are in uniform, not a civilian, and it doesn't represent the desire of the common man in this country. Do you agree?
Come on. As infantile, narrative. Look. There's no need to quarrel over this thing. There's a force that propels man into doing stuff. You don't understand what I'm saying? Look, there's things that just happen and you lack and you don't have control over it.
So you think external interests are what is that force that is pushing this country?
No. The force, I'm not even able to explain what I mean by force beyond what I just said. That there's a force behind the things that you do. It's not palpable. There's a force that propels you. Do you understand? You got up very early this morning and other things that you're going to do today. So what I'm saying is very simple. Ojawale is making a very profound argument from his perspective. I don't quarrel with him. I don't disagree with him. My name is Chuk Smoko. I have my own perspective. What I'm saying to you is that, look, everything that is made by man has an expiring date. Is that hard to understand?
Yeah, but
so invariably you're saying that ECOWAS has outlived this purpose? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry?
Are you saying ECOWAS has outlived this?
That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that this thing that has happened, look, we're here. We know when ECOWAS was very functional. Things have changed globally, economically, politically, and socially. Things have changed. Things are no longer the same.
Okay.
Do you understand? He said that ECOWAS is an envy of other global regional blocs. It's correct. Things are changing. These guys just acquired power by force. And when you give a man power, then you give him money, the man is changed. The problem with them now, well, not a problem. Fortunately for them, there are 3 nations. And it's always easier to collaborate when you want to perpetrate evil. Do you understand? Collaboration, when your enemies come against you and all that, they are quick to agree, they are quick to want to destroy. That's what I'm saying. I don't have anything against ECOWAS. I'm just an analyst who understands some dimensions of these global trends. Do you understand what I'm saying? I am saying that, look, Nigerians in Ghana, he's in a very good place. Maybe because the people in Senegal and Dakar, they recognize the advantage of shared community and shared reality. Do you understand? Other nations, look, if you know what our brothers and sisters have been subjected to in Ghana, especially our traders who follow the rules, who register, who pay certain amount of money and all that, all those things, what they have been subjected to in the last 5 years, you don't want to be...
So what's the third force that you have been speaking about otherwise?
Sorry?
The third force. You've been mentioning there is a third force. There's a third force. But there has to be an
alternative. You have talked about it now, negotiation now, pleading now. And those things cannot happen except you exercise patience because it takes time. Do you understand? You must be patient when you are negotiating, whether it's for contract or anything. You got to negotiate, recognizing that you will take patience. If you don't have patience, you can't be a leader. And you must know these things, right, because you don't want to lose them.
Right. Dr. Ojawale, he said that negotiation, according to what Veronica asked him, which is said that's
and diplomacy.
And diplomacy. But the only thing is that, do you feel ECOWAS has, because some said, what difference does it make that those three countries announced their exit? Because in the first instance, they have been sanctioned. They have heavy sanctions against them. Yeah. So it doesn't make any difference. So do you feel it is time for ECOWAS to now begin to prune down some of these sanctions, soften some of these sanctions, imposed on these countries?
And to add to that, how can ECOWAS really position itself to not allow itself be taken advantage of, but also ensure that as much as it is ready to negotiate, it is also doing that in the best interest of the bloc?
Yes, thank you so much. The first question, I think I will answer it by saying, as far as we know, ECOWAS is negotiating. And it is, unfortunately, when you do things at that level, it is not everything that makes it to the pages of the media. But I can tell you, based on what I know and the interaction that I've had with ECOWAS in the course of my work, ECOWAS is negotiating. The bone of contention is that they want to ensure that whatever ECOWAS permits in one country is replicated in another. And that is the reason why they are negotiating with a common front. Now, in terms of where do we go from here, what do I think ECOWAS should do? I think the responsibility falls flat on the table of the present chairman of ECOWAS now, and is to increase that diplomatic shuttle and engagement that is going to find a win-win arrangement for both parties in those countries and even the ECOWAS as a region. I know they've been doing that, but I think based on their recent decision now, these three countries, it's important to now take that strategy to the next level. Because at the heart of this is that ECOWAS doesn't want a tenure elongation that lasts forever. And then these countries also have their end game in view. I mean, you see, people are going to see the implication of the decision of ECOWAS now. Imagine if these guys are able to transform and put themselves on the ballot and they win the election. You have established a precedent that it is going to compound the relationship of ECOWAS with these countries in the coming days. And based on what you also saw that happened in Sierra Leone in the recent time, I think ECOWAS is up and running and is going to establish a deterrence so that this doesn't become a norm in our region.
All right. We'll have to leave the conversation here now. We must thank you, security expert and regional coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, Dr. Oluwole Ojawale, for your time on the program, as well as Global Affairs Analyst Chukwunwoku for your time on the program as well. Thank you very much.